Aloha and welcome to Ehana Kako. We're a weekly program on the Think Tech Hawaii Broadcast Network. I'm Keli'i Akina, president of the Grassroots Institute. There is no institution that perhaps has greater impact upon the economy and future of the state of Hawaii than the University of Hawaii. A world-class research institution, what takes place at the university can determine the future of our state as well as nation. Very few people realize this. I love universities. I've grown up in universities. I've been a student. I've worked there and taught there and send my children to universities. So it's been something to me. It's been a place to learn. It's been a place to work. The university is all things to all people, which may be one of the problems with trying to govern a complex entity. Today, we have somebody uniquely situated to talk with us about the University of Hawaii and its impact upon Hawaii and the world. Michael Hamnett, for the last 35 years, has been engaged here in Hawaii in taking research from the world of theory and getting it to where it really matters, out into the marketplace, out into the public, where it can make a big difference. He is the Research Corporation, University of Hawaii, Executive Director, and I'm delighted that we're going to be able to talk about what the university is, what its impact is, and what every legislator, policymaker, and citizen here in the state of Hawaii should know. So please welcome Michael Hamnett. Michael, aloha.
Aloha, delighted to be here.
Well, so good. I enjoy chatting with you because you think big ideas.
I try.
I'm going to throw a question at you right at the beginning because I don't want to take anything for granted. We have a world-class research university, the UH. What exactly is it? What is a research university?
Well, the Manoa campus is the research campus of the university, even though UH Hilo and the other schools in the 10-school system, they do research, but the majority of it is done at UH Manoa. And you know, UH Manoa has basically three missions: research, instruction, and service.
Three things that are done in an orbit: research, instruction, and service
to the community.
And our university is a full-service university, so it does quite a bit in all three of these areas. Is that right?
It does, and it also has the professional schools, which are part of the instructional part.
That's right.
You know, it's a teacher's college, it's a nursing school, it's a medical school, it's a law school, it's a business school, it's a school of arts and sciences, and in some ways, it's too big a mission to manage easily. And the research enterprise itself is a $300 million a year operation, and but that's only one of the three missions of UH Manoa.
Well, I went to college up in the Midwest, and there's a venerable institution there, the University of Chicago, that has this motto: "Let knowledge grow from more to more, and so be human life enriched." And when I think about that motto, I think about what you do, basically. You're involved in taking the research at the university and enhancing our economy and our lifestyle.
Yeah, my day job at the Research Corporation. Research Corporation is a service agency that is a staffing agency and procurement agents for the entire research enterprise in all 10 campuses. Our biggest client is UH Manoa, and it's everything from telescopes to submarines to social research in the community to medicine to cancer research and engineering, and so it's a multifaceted research enterprise at UH Manoa, and there are several areas where UH Manoa excels, notably astronomy, ocean sciences, and even things like linguistics.
Now, you called the university your client.
Yes.
In other words, there's something that RCUH does. It's a function that you do for the university. So the university doesn't just do research, doesn't just teach about research. That research has to get translated. How does the Research Corporation do that, translate that into our economy?
Well, the Research Corporation is the place where people manage projects, and some of those projects are basic research projects, some of them are applied research projects. And it's really the faculty that drive the enterprise. And RCUH is really a facilitator or a service agency to support them. I also have a faculty appointment at the university.
That's right.
And that's where I've been involved for at least 20 years in taking research in energy, coral reef science, and in natural resource mitigation and translating those into things which are useful for people, mostly within the state agencies.
You've also done work in emergency management as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I do. I chair a thing called the Statewide Hazard Mitigation Forum, and we did, I started researching in that field in 1980 in the South Pacific, but really got involved in Hawaii after Hurricane Iniki here in Hawaii.
Now, a lot of times when we use a word like research, people call to mind the laboratory, the white coat, the rats, and so forth. But research is a very broad term covering a great many disciplines. What is research, and what does it include?
Well, research, at the most basic, it's creating new knowledge. It could be creating new knowledge to advance a field of chemistry or astronomy, and making discoveries of new things. I mean, we at the Institute for Astronomy discovers new stars and new phenomena out in the universe. But the kind of research I do is mostly working with agencies to try to solve social problems or environmental problems.
So that field of sociology, human behavior, human resources, and so forth, is also the province of research. We research on how to run an organization better, or how to run a government better. Do we do much research there? No.
Yeah, we do. We try. But it really is, I mean, in my own personal experience has been working with agencies to try to solve problems. Mm-hmm. So working with the Department of Land and Natural Resources to find out the causes of coral reef degradation and to identify ways in which we could reverse that degradation. And then to see whether the things that we do to reverse that degradation actually do any good.
Well, I can imagine that there are multiple causes at play all the time. There are scientifically explainable causes as to why coral reefs are in trouble, but then there are the ones you don't have scientific control over, like what legislators do, what politicians want, what special interests are promoting. Do you take that into consideration in research?
We do, and I remember when the Dean of the School of Ocean Earth Sciences and Technology asked why the Hawaii Coral Reef Initiative Research Program was at the Social Science Research Institute where I was, and I remember telling Barry Raleigh, if there weren't any people, the coral reefs would be just fine, because most of these are human-induced problems, and it's a matter of trying to change human behavior to reduce the negative impacts.
Now that's fascinating, the interplay between human behavior and technology. We sometimes think of them as being isolated or in separate camps, but they're intimately related.
Oh, they are, because people drive the technology and people use the technology.
That's something.
And sometimes without knowing the environmental consequences of what they're doing.
Now, going back to the big picture, what place does the university, our research university, the University of Hawaii, play in building the Hawaii economy?
Several things. I mean, we have units like the School of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources, which has been sort of an integral part of the agricultural industry in Hawaii. It used to serve sugar and pineapple primarily, but in more recent years, it's been involved in diversified agriculture, in floriculture, which has just boomed on the Big Island.
Absolutely.
And including, breeding, developing new breeds of orchids, for example.
So the research helps specific industries to be able to optimize. I think of those lovely orchids.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever I travel to the Big Island and so forth, that just didn't exist 20 years ago. The hybridization and so forth, a lot of that is driven by the university.
Yes, yeah, there have been orchid varieties that have been developed by people or discovered by people at the university.
Now, overall, when we think about our situation as a state, everything from the unfunded liabilities of our payroll, of our pension program for public employees, our healthcare needs, the condition of our state hospital, we're seeing a drying up of revenues and costs that are being sunk, that are sunk already in maintenance that has to be done. What role does the university have in generating greater incomes for the state?
Well, the extramural contracts and grants that are generated by the university, I mean, RCUH, for example, we have 3,000 employees. Virtually all of them are employed on contracts and grants that come from the federal government or state agencies or private foundations.
So money comes in, research is done?
Right, and people spend the money and it circulates within the economy.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's one aspect. The other aspect is inventions and discoveries.
There.
And, you know, there has been, I remember when Sean Howes with the Honolulu Star Bulletin, I think it was, he wrote an article saying he couldn't understand with the university having such a big volume in contracts and grants why there weren't more revenues from inventions and discoveries. And
Why is that?
Well, part of the reason is that we have things like astronomy is a big part of our research enterprise.
That's right.
And there are discoveries and inventions, particularly in instrumentation. The telescopes on Mauna Kea develop new instruments for new applications, but those are not going to be sold in the commercial marketplace. I mean, there's a limited scope for selling those kinds of things.
Or they're part of a much bigger, longer-term picture in terms of shifting and creating industries.
Yes.
But just because there is an optimization on a lens or something like that, we're not going to have an immediate market benefit.
No.
In fact, in the short run, we'll actually end up paying more, probably.
We will, probably, yeah.
Well,
And
once in a while-
medicine's the other thing. And, you know, for a long time, UH had a relatively small share of the UH research portfolio was in medicine and in pharmaceuticals. And that's changing now. But compared to places like Vanderbilt University, which, I mean, the majority of their money comes from the National Institutes of Health. And it's only a portion of our money that comes from there.
How about that? You know, sometimes the public is just not aware of the role that research plays and needs to play. And then all of a sudden something happens that catches the imagination. I think of the glow-in-the-dark mice.
Yes.
Gene splicing and so forth. What was it about that got public attention? Why? Because that's not the only time we've innovated. We innovate all the time. We have great breakthroughs. But that captured the imagination of the public.
And we don't, quite frankly, when Jim Gaines was vice president, we did a better job of telling the story about the research enterprise at the university.
Sure.
But we really don't tell it very well, particularly with all the bad press about decisions at the university about things other than the research enterprise. But I think
You mean the athletic program, but
among other things. But I think we really haven't told the story, a very good story about all of the good things that are happening in the research enterprise at the university. Some very practical things like cures for cancer. Some very practical things like dealing with the coffee borer problem. So, you know, other things like that. And we just haven't told the story very well.
Now, is that because the research corporation is not responsible for telling that story, or politically in the university, it's just not the way the university narrates what it does to
We
the
just
public?
haven't put a very big emphasis on it. I mean, a couple years ago, we printed a calendar which highlighted the principal investigators that we serve at the Research Corporation, sort of trying to tell their story. But I think we need to do more of that. And get more op-ed pieces about the good stuff that's going on.
Maybe the researchers should have a mascot and a nickname like the Research Bows.
Or the Research Warriors?
There you go, the Research Warriors. So there is a certain public side to it, which takes us back again to the legislature and the relationship between the university and the legislature. And I'd like to go there in the second segment of what we talked about. More generally, how do we govern such a sprawling, huge entity as the university? To prime us, I mean, how many bosses does the university really have? What do you think that is?
Lots. It harkens back to the book that David Yout wrote many years ago about who runs the university.
Who runs the university, that's right.
But I mean, there's the Board of Regents, but the legislature has not hesitated to weigh in on things that it feels ought to be done, and the governor has too. On occasion.
On that note, Michael, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be with Michael Hamnett, who is the Executive Director of the Research Corporation of the University of Hawaii, and we'll address this issue. How do you govern a university like the University of Hawaii with so many bosses ranging from the public to the legislature, to students, to faculty, to unions, and so forth? Want to know the answer? Don't go away. We'll be right back on Hanakako on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network.
Hi, I'm Jay Fidel. I'm host of Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, which is our flagship show, which plays 4 to 5 p.m. every Wednesday. And the supporters of that show are Hawaii Energy Policy Forum and Hawaii Energy. And luckily enough, we have representatives of both of them right here today to tell you more about what they think about the show. Sharon Moriwaki at my left is co-chair of Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, and she goes first. Sharon?
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. I'm so glad that we have this Hawaii, the state of clean energy. This was 2 years ago when we started this, and we have continued it because it's so important, and there's so many developments happening across the state. And we hope you'll tune in every Wednesday, 4 to 5. It's wonderful.
And Ray is Hawaii Energy. Ray, what is your thought about the same subject?
Well, I agree completely with Sharon that we are talking about every Wednesday, 4 to 5. We talk about some of the most important subjects that are affecting the islands now and into the future. Energy, clean energy, we need it. We often run into new ideas that we had not thought about before. We did just today, and I think we're going to have more of that in the future. So come on down and watch us 4 to 5 on Wednesdays.
Aloha, welcome back to E Hana Kako on the Think Tech Hawaii Broadcast Network. I'm Keli'i Akina with the Grassroots Institute, an independent public policy think tank where we like to say E Hana Kako. Here in Hawaii, there's a venerable saying called E Pule Kako, which means let's pray together. At Grassroots, we like to say, let's work together. Let's work together for a better economy, a better government, and a better society. And I'd like to say mahalo to Think Tech Hawaii. What a great organization, putting out about 30 to 35 hours of original content from our studio in Honolulu, going all over the world. Thank you to you listeners and viewers. And if you want to watch any of the shows that are produced here, go to thinktechhawaii.com. We're talking about the University of Hawaii, such a valuable, important institution for the present and the future of the state of Hawaii. Few understand that impact as much as Michael Hamnett does. He's the executive director of the Research Corporation of the University of Hawaii. And we're talking a bit about the role the university plays. I'm going to ask him in a few moments to talk about what really causes it to be effective or not. Michael, as we were chatting even in the break, the university has incredible potential to expand our economy, to boost the quality of life in Hawaii, and to have an impact upon the nation and the world. Do you think we're achieving that potential to a significant measure?
Not as much as we could be. And I mean, part of the problem is that there are lots of distractions from the 3 missions of the university.
And those missions were research, instruction, and service.
Research, instruction, and service. And the research enterprise is large and it's growing, but I think we need to put more into supporting the research enterprises and facilitating the growth of it. I remember when Marcy Greenwood was president of the university, she was going to hire a bunch of very high-paid people to come in to bring in additional contracts and grants to do the research that the university is capable of. And I remember telling her, you know, if we just provided the support to the existing research faculty, and there are about 100 to 120 research faculty that bring in about 90% of the contracts and grants to the university. And if we'd really provide more support for them and reduce the impedance, reduce the hassle factor,
sure,
and reduce the bureaucratic burden on the research enterprise. And that's part of the reason RCUH was created.
What you're saying is that the research capacity is present at the university.
It is.
But there's a bottleneck in terms of translating that research into productive outcomes that will fuel the economy. Now, let's go to the reasons for this. It's not because people are just sitting around doing nothing.
No.
They're certainly working. It's not because of the lack of people running or trying to run the university, because there are more than enough trying to run the university. What is the problem with governance that prevents the university from fulfilling its mission?
Well, I mean, I think, stepping back from the governance thing for just a second, as far as the support I'm talking about, it's really the university hasn't invested enough in facilities and support staff to enable the research enterprise to move forward at a faster
Certainly.
pace than it is.
And wouldn't you see that as one of the outcomes of the way it's governed? And I'm not trying to point to any particular office holder whatsoever. I'm thinking more in terms of the very structure of this entity,
Well,
because
there's
it's a
a fun-
perennial problem.
There's a financial squeeze going on, and that is that the level of general fund funding for the university from the state
You
has
mean from the
declined.
legislature
Yeah.
every year?
That's declined.
Okay, yes.
And tuition has gone up, because several years ago, the university was allowed to keep its tuition. And then the legislatures, as the legislative funding for the university has gone down, tuition has gone up. And it's causing a squeeze, because the parents and children that go to the university for instruction really don't feel like they should have to support the research enterprise. But if we're not really investing in the research enterprise, it's just not going to expand the way it should. And and I understand the political problem. And to their credit, the legislature this session has given the university a lump sum budget, and they're saying, we're not going to micromanage the distribution of those funds to campuses. We'll give you a lump sum, and you guys figure it out, and we will hold you responsible.
Yes, and that's definitely an improvement, and I do hope that that ultimately passes into law.
I hope so, too.
But nonetheless, the university is still in the position of coming to cap in hand, so to speak, to the legislature every year. There have been discussions through the decades, actually, about autonomy and what autonomy means and what it doesn't mean and so forth. What are your thoughts about that? There are some major research universities across the world that are private, that don't depend upon government funding outside of what individual researchers may get and so
Right.
forth, that are capable of building funding mechanisms that really make them extremely competitive for more funding. Do you see autonomy as something worth discussing now?
Well, I mean, I think the move that the legislature is making with the lump sum budgeting is a
Some
move toward
managerial autonomy.
Yeah, it is, and it's going to be. I think the university is going to be able to it's going to be easier for the university to manage that. There's still going to be the squeeze between the increase in costs of maintaining the research enterprise and the downward pressure on tuition, because they're really, aside from tuition and general funds, there are contracts and grants, and I think that's probably about a third of the budget of the university now, or maybe more than that. And those generate indirect costs, which then can be used to support the research enterprise. But
Contracts-
it still is a squeeze.
Contracts and grants, about a third of the UH budget,
think
you're
so.
saying. Well, what would you like to see that at?
Well, I mean, Marcy Greenwood, when she was here, she was talking about growing it to $1 billion. And I looked this morning at the volume of new contracts and grants. I think is at $319 million last year, at the end of last year, for 2014.
So we have quite a ways to go.
Quite a ways to go.
Ideally, in terms of a percentage of budget, what would be good?
Well, it depends on how we're going to move the chairs around on the
Sure.
on the deck here. And part of that's going to depend on what happens with West Oahu and the other schools.
That's right.
What's going to happen there?
In fact, for a moment, let's talk a bit about West Oahu. I think that anyone who's followed the news over the last several years has seen a jurisdictional move here, and ultimately, West Oahu has changed hands, and in some ways, it's back under your jurisdiction to some extent.
Well,
not yours, but the.
They're part of the system,
Uh-huh.
and you know they were really housed on the Leeward Community College campus for
Right.
many years in temporary buildings, and they talked about building a new campus for 35 years before it actually got started. And then a deal was cut with Campbell Estate to get a sizable chunk of land out in West Oahu, and the plan was to go ahead and sell some of that land for residential and commercial development, take the proceeds and invest it in the campus. And that all kind of fell apart when the real estate bubble broke.
Mhm.
And so the legislature stepped up and provided bond funding to build the campus. But there's always been a tension, particularly with the Manoa campus, who felt like, the people there feel like it's going to take away from Manoa and drain funds that should rightly be put into Manoa.
And are you talking about the funds that are needed to get that institution started, west of Oahu,
Yeah.
and from scratch, really, taking away from the infrastructure for research that is lacking at the
Well,
University of Hawaii?
ultimately, it's a zero-sum game. I
Mhm.
mean, if you're going to if you're going to move funds from the Manoa budget, or if you're going to decrease the Manoa budget and increase the West Oahu budget, people will say, well, you're robbing Manoa to build West Oahu. I mean, that's a political decision. I can see why people at Manoa are upset about the whole enterprise. And again, at some level, it's a zero-sum game. So if you're going to increase the instructional services to folks out west of Oahu, that money's going to have to come from somewhere, and it's going to have to come. And Manoa is the biggest chunk, is the biggest piece in the UH budget.
How is the struggle affecting the morale of the researchers themselves and the potential to attract new researchers who can do high-level work?
I don't think West Oahu has had that big an impact in and of itself, but I think the siege on the university from the news media and from the legislature has definitely had a negative impact on morale overall. And there's a feeling that, the research enterprise in particular, people feel bedraggled. I mean, they're struggling to maintain their current level of funding, and funding's getting tougher. And so there's a feeling among the research faculty that they really need more support in order to continue to grow the research enterprise. And, Marcy Green was talking about tripling the research enterprise to $1 billion a year. And that is going to be a stretch. It's not impossible, but I think if the university is going to do that, they're going to have to invest more in what I call research infrastructure.
Sure.
Facilities, administrative support, and that's what's going to have to happen to make it grow.
Now, you spoke earlier of robbing Peter to pay Paul and so forth, a zero-sum game. Who is it that should lead the charge for the university fulfilling its research potential? Is this something from within the university, or is it the governor? Is it the people of Hawaii? How does this vision actually get out there and become a compelling, good driving force?
Well, the legislature, in its wisdom this year, has a bill been introduced to give a consolidated budget to the university. Right. So in the past, the legislature has been involved in deciding how much goes to Hilo, how much goes to West Oahu, how much goes to community college, how much goes to Manoa. Isaac Choi and his counterpart on the Senate side said, we're going to give a lump sum and hopefully that'll pass. That then kind of shifts the responsibility to the UH administration, David Lasser and his team, as well as to the Board of Regents that ultimately has to approve the budget for the university. So, and I think David and his team and his new team with Calvert Young and Jan Govea,
right,
and others, I think they're a really good team, and I think they're going to kind of take the bull by the horns.
Well, we're seeing this at the turn of administrations. We have a new gubernatorial administration. We have a new appointee to the budget director position at the university.
Wes.
And we have Calvert Young, who came from the budget directorship for the state and so forth. So you're optimistic then.
I am.
Very good. Well, what are some signs that give you optimism at this point? I
mean, mostly it's dealing with Calvert and Jan and other people within the administration. I mean, we've got some struggles between RCUH and UH. I mean, they're not tension struggles, but we've got some problems that we need to deal with together. And it's a pleasure kind of dealing with them. They really kind of see our point of view from Research Corporation, and they see the value of RCUH and the fact that we've got to solve some of the problems that we're dealing with right now. Budget overruns in certain parts of the university, and in trying to get the research enterprise moving.
None of the departments of the university live in a vacuum.
No.
They're in the public eye, and often everything is lumped together. So you were referring to many of the things that have been in the news media recently as impacting the morale of some of the researchers and so forth. And maybe we could spend the rest of the time, if you're willing, to talk a little bit about them. I'm not going to ask you about Stevie Wonder and the concert, but everybody who's watched the news, and I'm going to use that as a baseline sort of, because this is the public mind,
Right.
has seen the difficulties of administering the athletic program, the budgets and so forth. They've seen overall in the university a line of firings that have taken place with some questionable parachutes and so forth. They're watching the struggle down at the Kaka'ako campus in terms of the cancer center and its finances, and we could go on, and you're right, it could make somebody feel, gee, I don't know if people love me here at the university or if we're going to go anywhere, but what's going on? Is this unusual? Is this really new? Is it the same thing that has been happening since the inception of the university, or are we facing some kind of long-term structural crisis?
Well, I think a couple things are going on. I mean, I think many people in the community feel like the salaries that are paid to administrators at the university are too high, and it's like I tell my wife, you know, if you want to get top-notch, if you want to be competitive nationally, you've got to pay national level salaries, and those are higher than most salaries in the private sector.
And just to touch on that a moment, we're here at Hawaii where there's only one university
That's
of
right.
Hawaii, only one university president, only one athletic director with a team at this level. We don't live in Boston.
No.
We don't live in Berkeley. We don't have multiple institutions, so it's hard to gauge this for the public.
That's where it's a difficult spot for the University of Hawaii to be in, because there are no comparisons locally, and you know, and I think some people, legislators, have told me this. You know, we're paying top dollar and they're still screwing things up.
Well, you know, let me ask you about that when we come back from a break, because I think there's also timing that has to be taken into consideration between the hiring of somebody and any expected result. My guest today, Michael Hamnett, is the Executive Director of the Research Corporation of the University of Hawaii. Fascinating conversation about the role of the university in our state, as well as its governance and operations. We're going to close up taking a look at many specific issues, some of which you've seen in the news in the past year or two. But don't go away, because we will be right back after this short break. Aloha.
Hi, I'm your host on Think Tech Asia, Bill Sharp. I look forward to you joining us each Monday between 4 and 5 o'clock when we film right here in our studio in downtown Honolulu. The show, Think Tech Asia, focuses on contemporary events in Asia. And by Asia, we mean anything from Hawaii, south to Australia and New Zealand, west to Pakistan, and as far north as the Russian Far East. Clearly, this is one of the most economically dynamic centers of the world, and we bring you up to date on what's going on in a whole host of countries in this very vital region. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Welcome back to the final segment of today's Ehana Kako episode. It's so fascinating talking with Michael Hamnett about an institution that affects all of us here in Hawaii, the University of Hawaii. At this point in the conversation, we're getting into some nitty-gritty details. Michael, you were saying that part of the struggle for the university is the perception, correct or not correct, that there are a good number of administrators who are getting extraordinary salaries, and it's hard for the public, hard for legislators to really deal with that and understand it, for that matter.
Right, and you know, the university competes nationally for talent. And if you're going to compete nationally, you have to pay market rates. But many people, including some of my family, resent the fact that a university president's going to get paid $275,000, $300,000 a year. And then, you know, we've had a series of unfortunate personnel actions where people have been brought in, including President Dobell and Marcy Greenwood, that eventually, and the Chancellor Hinshaw, their contracts were cut short. And there were golden parachutes,
right,
some people would call, built into their contracts. And that's part of the pressure to be competitive, because that's what other schools do.
Do you think there are some external factors as well, such as the condition of our economy, such as the declining revenues at the legislative and county level, such as paying for big things like the rail? Do you think those things weigh in on how we treat the university?
Well, they weigh in, I think they weigh in on the public's perception that money is tight and that, you know, we can't afford to pay these large salaries. We can't afford to give these golden parachutes for people who leave. And so it's a real squeeze. And then, like we were saying earlier, part of the squeeze is declining general funds from the legislature and upward pressure on tuition just to keep the lights on and to keep the classes taught. So that's making the whole money thing much more difficult, both from inside the university as well as the public perception about, you know, so I mean, I think I've heard people tell me that you people at the university don't appreciate the value of public money because of things like the Stevie Wonder deal or a golden parachute for a basketball coach or whatever. But it's a real juggling act, a financial juggling act.
Part of that difficulty, of course, going back to our earlier conversation, is the challenge of managing such a multi-headed institution. Do you have some advice for this administration as to how to go forward? Even advice for the governor and legislature as to what would be good in terms of helping the university to fulfill its potential?
I mean, I think if we could get away from this sort of antagonistic struggle between the university administration and you know, outside forces, including the legislature and the governor, and that we could actually work together to figure out how we're going to solve the problems and get much more of a sort of a collegial, collaborative effort going, being very honest about the kind of situation that the university is facing with declining revenues and upward pressure on tuition and the need to provide the kind of infrastructure that's going to be necessary to grow the research enterprise.
You know, you mentioned earlier that there are some endeavors that the university does that are definitely world-class, but don't immediately translate into something for the Hawaii economy.
Right.
And sometimes that is the case with our world-class astronomy at the university. Are there some bright spots, though, where research could actually, when unfettered, help build the Hawaii economy? How about robotics? How about
the robotics
engineering?
field is done? They've done very well, and it's you know, filtered down into the schools and some of the things that are going on there. I mean,
So there's a social educational benefit being driven by university research.
Yeah, and if you look at the increase in performance in the public school system, part of that's been driven by things like the film enterprise out at Waianae High
That's
School.
right.
And Chris Lee's involvement with with those folks.
Well, that's very interesting because there was a recent report released within the last 2 weeks that showed that public school graduation rates are actually higher this year than the last measurement. And I noted about them that those schools that drive the figure up are actually schools like Waianae High School and other places. And I was wondering who gets the credit here. There were enough people claiming credit, but you just mentioned a factor that may be part of it, and that is technical training or practice, such as filmmaking, robotics, and so forth, is very much alive in some of those schools that have experienced growth in their graduation numbers.
And people at the university have been involved in that. There's a P20 program at the university that brings together folks at the university.
From preschool through age 20.
Right, exactly. And
Wouldn't it be nice if our kids were done with college by age 20?
I know. But I mean, I know people that have been involved with the robotics competition and in the music industry down at Honolulu Community College and the recording industry, basically. But there are bright spots all over the place. I don't think they just get enough press.
One of our challenges here in Hawaii is that legislators and administrations are faced with shrinking revenue, but growing needs in a population that is aging and so forth. And it's so easy for the things that cost money to raise taxes, such as the GE tax, for which there have been nearly a dozen bills this current legislature for a raising of the GE
Right.
tax. What can the university do to really help boost the climate in Hawaii for venture capital? There's got to be a relationship between corporate investment and what's done at the university.
I think that Shidler College of Business has been, they've had several programs. The UH Angels have been affiliated with the Shidler College of Business on investment. I think this new accelerator program that Vasilis Sirmos has started with trying to take UH intellectual property and convert it into commercial products and services. That's the kind of thing, and that's been a dream since, at least since Arioshi's day that I can remember.
Well, those sound like exciting initiatives.
Yeah, they are.
And most definitely they are part of Governor Arioshi's vision for what Hawaii could become. And yet, since the time of Ariyoshi, we've kind of stumbled in terms of Hawaii becoming a destination for venture capital. What can the RCUH perhaps, or the university itself, contribute to the continued growth in that area?
I think what, with Omar Sultan with the
Yes.
accelerator, I think, you know, he is kind of pushing things ahead with some frustration.
And by the way, the accelerator is like a business incubator that helps to unite entrepreneurs, research, funders, and give them the environment in which to grow, hopefully, companies that are traded on the stock exchange.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, the Office of Technology Transfer and Economic Development has gotten much better over the years. When I first went to RCUH in 2004, it was somewhat bureaucratic, and people said it really wasn't trying to help commercialization. It was to protect the intellectual property of the university, and that's not where the emphasis should be. The emphasis should be on making all this stuff work.
Maybe we'd like people to steal it and make it work.
Well, I mean,
and then we'll get it back in court.
Well, no, it's like my predecessor at RCUH, Harold Matsumoto, says, you know, let's encourage the faculty to go out and invent stuff, make a whole lot of money, and then come back and give us a gift.
There you go.
And that might be a better investment than dumping a lot of money into sort of a bureaucratic protection of intellectual property for the university. But I am optimistic. I mean, there are good things happening, and I think, you know, I think David Lassner and his team are starting to put things together and get things moving. And
Sure.
and I have a lot of faith in those folks.
You know, we've got such a struggle here now to keep alive and make sense out of the investment that has been made in the Cancer Center.
Right.
There's such a need in Hawaii. There's such an ideal population for cancer research and so forth. In fact, and there is such a national and global market available. What are your thoughts on what it's going to take for us to really make the best out of the Cancer Center situation?
Well, I mean, it's unfortunate that I think there was I think it wasn't as carefully managed. The funds were not as carefully managed as they could have been. And there was also a downturn in the cigarette tax revenue
Right.
because people stopped smoking. And that
Which
was
is
something.
a success to some extent.
Right, it was, but it's cut the revenue,
That's
I think, in
right.
half to the Cancer Center. And I think Jairus Hedges is the dean of the School of Medicine, is in charge of the Cancer Center now, and Jairus is a good, steady hand, and I mean, he's got to dig us out of a hole,
Sure.
for sure. But I think he's the guy to do it.
Well, Michael, thank you for giving your insights today. I really enjoyed
Keli'i,
talking with you.
thank you
as
so
always.
much. It's been a pleasure.
Our guest today has been Michael Hamnett, the Executive Director of the Research Corporation of the UH. I hope, like myself, you, at the end of this program and chat with Michael, appreciate all the more the importance of the University of Hawaii, especially those wonderful researchers, the faculty and scientists and others who are there working hard day and night to bring knowledge to life. I think that as we are able to harness this, it's an absolutely essential component in building the Hawaii economy and improving the lifestyle of everyone here. I'm Keli'i Akina with the Grassroot Institute on the Think Tech Hawaii Broadcast Network. Until next time, let's work together. E hana kākou.